Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Aditya. I head the Microsoft advertising business at InMobi for India and Southeast Asia. The topic we're going to be covering today is Ramadan Renaissance and crafting memorable marketing moments around the same. This month, we have Ramadan, a period that is heightened by consumer engagement and unique buying behaviors. Our discussion will help marketeers decode the latest marketing trends, adapt to evolving consumer needs, and creating Ramadan specific campaigns that'll ensure that you have success driven this Ramadan. From from the role of generative AI to adapting to omnichannel strategies, we'll be discussing everything that will take your brand to leave a mark this Ramadan. For the discussion today, I have esteemed guests, Rowan and Anusha, joining us. Rowan is the Associate Digital Director at Assembly Global, and he manages brands in the consumer electronics segment and apparel as well. And Anusha is the Brand Director at Limitless, which houses brands like PowerChimp, Cake Rush, and Lively. Thank you, Anusha and Rowan, for joining us today. In the discussion today, I think it will be just to start with an introduction to your company, to the brand that you manage and the regions that you cover. And then we can dive into the consumer behavior and what is it that you anticipate this Ramadan for your particular vertical and industries. So over to you, Anusha. I think it'll be just if you can give a quick start for the same.
Cool. Thanks, Aditya. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. So essentially, I represent Limitless Technology, who operate flower and gifting services across Southeast Asia and Australia. So predominantly, most of you probably would have heard about our brands as we operate in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Hong Kong, and of course, Australia. So, basically being a flower and gifting delivery service, during this period, it's a really critical time for us, essentially, especially in markets like Malaysia and Indonesia, and to some extent, Singapore. So with regards to Ramadan, we identified that there are really 4 stages of Ramadan. It's actually the pre-Ramadan prep that happens, the Ramadan period itself, the pre-Raya prep, and in Malaysia, we call it Raya. And in Indonesia, it's known as Lebaran. So these are the little different terminologies and sort of namings that we need to take into consideration, especially when looking at search volume and optimizing our keywords and such. And of course, the post-Raya period. How do you get people to go back to their normal routine after a celebration such as this? So generally during this time, we find that, overall, an InMobi report has showed us that 73% of shoppers actually will make purchases on mobile this Ramadan. And because it's easy, and they're looking for discounts, app-only discounts, special Ramadan offers, even free shipping during this time. And the spirit of giving is alive during this time. During Raya, people visit, people send gifts to their business partners and things like that. So we just need to make sure that as a business, we have the relevant products that our customers want. And how do we tap into this psyche and make sure that we are relevant and present across all the different touch points? And I guess when it comes to, the key categories across this time, we find that the key industries like travel, cleaning, preparation of the house, gifting, and personal care are probably the things that consumers spend the most amount of their money on during this time. So yeah, these are the areas that we are really looking into as a business.
Got it. Yeah, it's I think very insightful to understand the different terminologies you used across regions for the same seasonality, right? Especially for search marketeers or anybody trying to get into the insights on these trends. And if they're not from the region, it's going to be extremely crucial for us to leverage the understanding of specific regional nuances in terms of searches and how to actually prep for it. So it's a great insight from your end as well, and looking at the gifting vertical and how it functions on these lines. Rowan, if I were to come to you to understand your function at Assembly Global and how do you leverage and prepare yourself for the month of Ramadan, it'll be great to get some views from you.
Thanks, Aditya, for the intro. And hi everyone. I'm Rowan. I represent Assembly Global. Assembly Global is a omni-channel agency. So we essentially cover all countries in the media that we run, we our mission is essentially to help brands find a change that fuels growth, as a means of bringing in new innovations, combining brand and performance. We're also under a network called Stagwell, which brings in aspects of e-commerce, aspects of creative agencies that helps build that additional connection when it comes to running media. And when it comes to Ramadan, I think a trend that we tend to see, especially for markets in Southeast Asia, is that the preparation tends to happen quite early. You'll see that usually weeks beforehand, there are trend shifts in terms of people's buying behavior. So people are searching for more terms, especially within categories like apparel, which is very big for Ramadan because it's supposed to be a period of change, a period of putting your best foot forward and being the best you can be. So because of this, people want to go out and look for clothes that can best represent their growth, their the change that they want to bring. And this trend is not necessarily only specific to Ramadan, but we do see this happening with other big periods in Southeast Asia region. So even for the Lunar New Year period, we see the trend similarly, where preparation does happen early. So it's very key that purchasing behavior will be changing, trend behavior will be changing, but it might be happening a bit earlier than you expect. So if the Ramadan period happens on, let's say, around mid-March, you need to start preparing around late Feb. Could be even mid-Feb, depending on your specific category. So preparing early, making sure that while you're preparing early, you do bring in that aspect of having the right messaging, having the right creative is very important because people during this period, they want to see and find things that are relevant to them. So personalization plays a bigger play here. I think if you were to go into this with a broader aspect of marketing that essentially just shows that, hey, we have a sale, or hey, we're promoting this specific thing, or just add on Ramadan to whatever you're running, I think it's not really going to resonate with them. I
Mhm.
think the best way is to really create a personalization. If you know that you have products that really resonate with the Ramadan audience, let's say an example is you have shoe launches, apparel launches that coincide with themes, coincide with colorways, you need to make sure that that's upfront. You need to make sure that when people are searching, you have the right keywords in place, like what Aditya mentioned, and make sure that if offline is a big part of your business, you make sure that you do also shift your offline strategy. You make sure that's very present there in terms of what you're doing for the seasonal moment.
Got it. No, so when it comes to the search trends, I think one of the pieces we all know is search is heavily performance driven, right? And uh, from a Microsoft advertising lens, there is search ads, and there is a plethora of other propositions that are there that go up the funnel as well, be it connected TV or display and native.
Mm.
Uh, We've also seen when we take decisions on search, it is heavily driven on the rising trends as well as current insights that the marketplace showcases. What I also want to well into a little bit and understand from you is how much do you put weightage, how much weightage do you put into understanding and dwelling into last year's trends? Because we know that everything is dynamically changing, and in the current day and age with Gen Z and Gen Alpha in play as well. And as millennials, we've been in the digital ecosystem and seen it evolving. How much weightage do you put on historical trends versus rising trends in terms of making your marketing decisions?
All right. Thanks, Aditya. So search is still very much a big part of what we use as a means of understanding behavior
Mhm.
because of the fact that it's very intent based. When people search, they have a reason behind it. It's not just happening because they're bored, essentially.
Mhm.
So it is important in terms of understanding the trends, but I think some other things that we look into deeply is looking at our actual data. So within the Ramadan period, for the brands that we manage, we like what I mentioned earlier, we tend to see some spikes happening earlier on, especially for markets like Malaysia, Indonesia, somewhat in Singapore as well. So the trends that we see in terms of our actual data, combine that with trends from search, essentially give us the best picture possible. But even beyond this, there's other aspects of looking into changes in the industry. I think our industry does shift quite often. So there's always new formats, new strategies, new channels that come into play. And a big part of that also is looking into what else we can do. And the reason why this is important is because Ramadan is a very competitive space. So we can get the insights on the trends, when to start, how to push it. But the reality is, you're not the only ones going to do this. There'll be other players doing this as well. So playing in spaces where there's less competition, playing in formats that we don't really see very often really helps you stand out a bit more. And standing out will play a very big impact. So, like going into, for example, you're very heavy on Google, trying out stuff on Bing as well, just because you do see that not all advertisers will play on that space. And similarly with formats, maybe DCO is a format that you've never tried before. This could be a good time to go and try DCO, which is dynamic creative optimization, as a means of,
Mhm.
again, going back that personalization aspect of you running your marketing during this period.
Got it. And Anusha, if I were to come to you from the traditional marketing lens as well as the digital marketing lens, right, as you encompass both those, how much weight do you put on search trends or digital trends and then make decisions on wider marketing forum?
Yeah, I think with us, when it comes to looking at past trends from a product perspective, actually, we know what are the type of products and gifts that people are looking for. These are the no-brainers. So we make sure that we continue to have these offerings as our standard setup. But what we do is we do invest about 10 to 20% of our, I think, our product lineup into trying out new things. So new partnerships, new types of products, just to kind of gauge, is there an appetite for it? And what are the other opportunities we can get. For example, I think partnership marketing is a big area, and that is growing, especially in Malaysia and Indonesia, where you have a lot of local brands, and people are very proud of supporting their local brands. So all this while, I think we work, generally with the international brands, but I think there's so much more value we can get from working with the smaller local brands who have a lot of a stronger following with the audience. So that, to me, that is really the new trends that we are looking at investing and doing partnership and co-marketing, product bundles and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. I think one of the pieces that I must discuss, and when you're looking at trends, in the last, I think, 4 to 5 years, we would have seen major shift in the digital advertising trend itself, right? Or digital trend overall, moving from the whole buzz around metaverse, the discussions that were always moving around that, to now moving into something that's more AI related in the overall digital ecosystem. And we know that AI technically is not something new. It's just been there over this time. It's just become more accessible now. If I were to ask both of you, right, and maybe Rowan, we'll start with you. From the lens of AI now being more accessible to consumers, how are brands actually leveraging that to ensure that they are benefiting and driving larger impact to it in terms of overall consumer experience?
Yeah. So I see this for twofold.
Mhm.
Essentially focusing specifically on generative AI. I think a big aspect that helps marketers, especially during moments like this where you really need to move fast, is the aspect of improving your process. Generative AI can be a means of at least finding out some thought starters on content, thought starters on even designs and things like that. But there needs to be that human element to it. I think what happens very often is a lot of brands go into AI, they will rush out AI ads, but they lose out the human element. And what happens is there's a lot of backlash because AI is not meant to replace artists, not meant to replace writers. It's really meant to supplement, um,
Yeah.
be there as a means of giving you ideas, a means of supporting you. So I think in that aspect, it's a really big thing for marketers to go into it because time is still of the essence. You do need to move fast. but you need to move fast in a way that isn't careless. You need to make sure that you bring in that human touch to it. I think another aspect is creating that connection with customers through AI. So this can be done in many ways. It can be done in the usage of AI outside of generative AI, but like what I mentioned earlier about DCO, and so a lot of other industry changes. Like for example, I think with the e-commerce space, we do see that AI is coming into play in terms of adding in dynamic backgrounds, which essentially you will have different backgrounds for your products. You have the usual, just like your product and white backgrounds. I think that shift in AI is quite interesting because then you have a lot of opportunity for testing. You can try different backgrounds, especially with this specific seasonal period. You can make your background a lot more festive because then again, it adds that connection as a personalization. It makes things more relevant to what's happening with your consumers. So I think these two things do play a big part in what I think marketers should look deeper into for AI in general.
Got it. And Ansha, what are your views on leveraging AI in the general sense of business as well as marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ruben, that was a really good point. I think I really agree with your, your thought process regarding it not being here to replace humans and totally about, improving our efficiency and, so we can focus on maybe, the things that really matter. And for us overall, from a design perspective, we found it pretty helpful. So obviously, you've got ChatGPT and, you've got the functions that help with the writing. But of course, you've got to give it the right prompts. You've got to give it the right brief. You have to try different versions until you're happy with the outcome. And in design as well, we're trying to explore new ways to, a lot of time we do product mock-ups, and that would take the designers like a few days to create mock-ups. And during the previous round, utilizing a new AI website, we actually managed to, we've actually finalized the designs in less than a day because you could just spit out different versions. And I think that really helps. It saves time. And at the same time, we also look at it as a great tool when understanding our customers. So, end of the day, I think understanding our customers still remains the forefront of what we do, right? And, by being able to automate that experience, so like in our CRM efforts, we actually identify the trends to target specific product groups. So for example, we find that, we might find that our older customers prefer our more old school arrangements and bouquets, whereas our newer customers might prefer more of a bundle sort of product. So we're actually using our CRM tool to target these groups and get understanding about them. And we also have similar AI tools when doing affiliate marketing. The system can optimize and understand affiliates better. So I think, across the board, there are little bits that are helping to improve our lives every day.
Yeah.
So embrace it.
I think one of the pieces that I saw both of you talk about, right, and it completely relates to Microsoft's Copilot as well, is it's not there to replace you, it's there to enable you to function better. In fact, when Microsoft released the Copilot or the integration with Bing, they also refer to it as your assistant for the web. It's not, and hence called the Copilot. One of the things that I also wanted to dwell a little bit more into is maybe Robin, maybe because you're into the execution side in the digital realm or digital advertising realm, is how do you leverage AI and what do you expect out of it when it comes to your general optimizations in search or optimizations in display advertising? Are you already seeing it becoming something that's heavy, or are you expecting more from AI in this play?
Yeah, great question. I think there's been a lot of shifts in the industry over the years. And a long time ago, it used to be that when we were to run things like search ads, we would need to put in specific keywords, and match types didn't exist back then. So
Mhm.
essentially, what we put in, we need to put in specifically what people are searching, which is a very difficult thing to do because you have to manage millions of keywords for your brands. Now we do see the shift towards putting everything, making everything simple. Sorry, and keeping everything within simplified structures. That way AI can run things on their own. So this is happening across a lot of the major platforms where you do see them looking deeper into having to consolidate information, have everything be put in one place so that AI will do all the work for you, which is a good and bad thing. I think in many aspects, the good thing is that there are a lot of new ones in the back end. when it comes to auction mechanics, because a lot of the work that's done online happens through auctions. And these auction mechanics, us advertisers running the putting the ads out there, we don't really get that full visibility because we're not big players like Google, Meta, and all that. Only they will see these things. So having them have better control over the auction through AI does make it better because at the right moments your ads can appear, which is what
Yep.
helps us drive that value. But the issue is the lack of control makes it difficult for optimization because with digital marketing, performance marketing especially, you need to find that movement forward, that growth over time, which will not happen if you are relying solely on AI because AI will optimize, but
Yep.
AI needs human data. It needs actual information. But the information is not clear, it's not clean, it does affect how it's gonna serve. So even though there's a shift towards making everything fully focused on letting AI do all the work, we still need to be there in that space to still kind of steer it in the right direction. Find
Yep.
ways for us to make that AI do its best because we know the business, we know the platforms, we know how to combine that together. The AI will not know that.
Yeah, I think further concretizing the fact that it acts as an enabler, not as a replacement.
Exactly.
I truly believe that piece, specifically across the advertising ecosystem, right? To ensure that that little bit of fixes here and there is definitely required, which is more manual intervention. The manual aspect of getting things moving at scale is something definitely where AI can come into play. Uh, with all of the trends that we are seeing, with all of the insights that that come in this ecosystem, one thing that I will also want to focus on and get your views on is the offline and online trends that come into your vertical that you focus on when you see customer behaviors and making marketing plans around that, right? So, what is it that, in this case, Anusha, if we were to ask you that you look at for your vertical, for your brand, in terms of offline and online trends?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, as you know, I mean, in the industry that I operate in, we're fully online. However, of course, similarly in terms of how consumers behave, we know that generally when it's a gifting season, it's still a very last minute effort. So,
Mhm.
we tend to focus majority of our budgets and our frequency towards closer to the time period to capture the last minute shoppers. Also, at a time where I think Ruben mentioned earlier, the clutter is quite heavy because you're also competing with other brands. So this is where working with a platform or provider that doesn't have that much competition is definitely an advantage for us because we can stand out in a better way as well. And I think it's beyond the festive period, right? Like, how do we create special occasions? We've seen an uptake in Women's Day. So I think, just leveraging and creating awareness around special occasions. And yeah, I think post-COVID as well, obviously, revenge spending is at its peak. So, how do we see that? How do we tap into that?
Got it. In terms of using the offline trends to deliver success online, considering your brand's purely online first, right? Or it's a pure play. How do you leverage some of the offline trends that you see so that you can create impact online?
Oh, absolutely. It's all correlated. Nowadays there isn't really even a differentiation
Hmm.
between that. Even people are generally the amount of requests we've come in and said, "Do you have a physical store?" And it's not that we're not. We're considering things, pop up and things like that. So I think. And being present, we can also be present to our partners as well on ground. So I think generally it's totally correlated. Yeah, bring it in,
Got it.
thing mix
And,
for sure.
it's interesting to understand from gifting vertical, right? That there is going to be that correlation that will come in. Rowan, how about you for the brands that you work in the consumer electronic and apparel space?
Yeah. I think Anusha brought up a lot of great points. And just adding on there, I think for consumer electronics specifically, we do see that within this current period of Ramadan, it tends to be a bit lower because consumer electronics tend to be a bit of so it's a higher price product. People don't
Hmm.
usually go and buy one at this period because most of the focus is mainly on apparel, food, those categories.
Hmm.
We do see that offline tends to do a bit better because I think Anusha brought up a great point of it being quite last minute.
Yeah.
People like to go to the stores and they want to see the product and buy the product right away. And I think a very important part of offline and online is that integration as well, online to offline or offline to online. I think what some of our brands do quite well is that they actually have pages on their website specific to Ramadan that talks about the products that they sell, the content that they have in relation to Ramadan. And I think it's really useful because one is research can happen online, but the purchase can happen offline. So that page makes it very easy and simple because they can see what they want, understand what they want, go to the store and buy it. Measurement becomes an issue there. So how that's usually being addressed is when you're in the store, you can scan your loyalty details.
Mm-hmm.
That brings it back to online. That measurement is still tracked in terms of connecting your activities online to what you've done offline. And similarly, on offline to online as well is quite important. So when they visit the store, they're also doing research, understanding what they want. And a trend that you will see, especially in Southeast Asia, is sometimes they will look at the product in the store. They might think, hey, it might be cheaper online. So they go to the store, they see the product, they see physically, you see, okay, I like this, it fits me well, then they will go search online for the product. So I think it's very important that at least from an aspect of offline and online, make sure there's an interconnectivity in terms of the Ramadan period. If
Yeah.
you if you are creating that great online presence in terms of showcasing that you're here for the festive season, your whole website maybe has shifted in the creative look, make sure that your offline store also follows, and make sure that in terms of your tracking, for offline to online, the understanding of the fact that because in digital you're able to track people's locations to a certain extent, you're able to have that in place. So you're able to know that, hey, this trend of offline and going back to online is very important. So you won't understand unless you have the actual data in place. It's similar with offline to online, having the addition of tracking true loyalty programs, even additional vouchers that can be given offline that can be taken taken online. I think those are great ways to at least bring in measurement because
Yeah.
the trends across both of them will be very strong, especially with offline being quite strong, online being strong in some spaces as well.
Yep. I think in this current day and age, full funnel solutions is going to become something that's going to be extremely crucial. And yes, merging that online and offline, like you mentioned, be it through loyalty programs or location targeting or any other device targeting that will come into play is I feel is right now the need of the hour. And from my lens, I think with AI coming into play, we will see a lot more of those developments come in as well, in clarity on targeting the right people at the right time, right? Uh, when we also look into all of these trends, one thing that always intrigues me is as marketeers, uh, how do you identify the right trend at the right time, right? It could either be a trend that's just a fad, or it could be a trend that's viral but short term. So it's all about either catching the bus at the right time or missing it, and at the same time also identifying the trend that you know is here to last. Where I'm getting to is from your lens, which are the emerging trends that you see in the marketplace right now, Ramadan and otherwise, and at the same time, how do you actually work towards creating an impactful marketing movement around it? And I'm sure we can start with you on that.
Sure. I guess for us, really, we see trends in the gifting space, of course. One of the things that we are seeing that's getting quite common in Asia is a gender reveal. It's actually an American trend now. The US and Australia, we're seeing more and more of that. Actually, it picked up in Taiwan last year, actually, and we start to see that sort of become some of the requests that come in. So that's one of the things that I think we could provide products for. And I guess on the second part, I think the part you said about going viral is that, like, virality is not necessarily the key that unlocks conversions. The number of times you've seen great ads or great stunts that have gone viral. However, you may not necessarily purchase from that brand. You may change your perception, which is great for branding, but whether that works for your brand, it needs to be assessed. Not everything needs to go viral. And I think the most important thing is as long as we stay authentic and relevant. So I think that is going to stay. People want to see more real things. And that's why UGC, people are investing in nano and micro influencers. It will still need to be considered as part of the marketing mix in some way or form. That's not going to go. As we come, I guess as we become more, more used to our time, shorter time frame and attention span, short form content will continue to rule. no doubt about it. However, I just need to say that if you do storytelling right, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you can't do great long form content. So again, be open and give it a try.
Yeah, I think I completely agree to the concept between short term and the long form content, right? In terms of duration, I think we've seen subscribers volumes increase for short form a lot, but then the value add that long form content brings in terms of followers, in terms of people actually who relate to the brand, I've seen that being extremely rewarding in terms of and lower funnel goals as well. Um, Rowan, from your point of view, how do you look at the emerging trends? And if I were to ask you, what do you think is that one trend that is here to stay? Uh, what would your view on that be?
Yeah, I think a lot of the emerging trends tend to come into the space of Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
Hmm.
Their behaviors are quite different from what we see with the previous generations. One is purchasing power wise, they're actually growing quite a bit. You'll see news about some Gen Zs already owning property before even maybe even some millennials, which is great because we do see that with increased purchasing power, they have a larger voice in terms of having or looking for what they want within the market. And one thing about Gen Zs is purpose plays a very big part for them. I think Anusha made some really great points about how you need to be real in terms of how you run your brand. You essentially need to make sure your brand has a true purpose that connects with the customer. Gen Zs want essentially that a brand existing must fulfill a purpose, must fulfill a greater good for the world. And when a brand does not serve that purpose, they are very open to boycotting this brand. They're very open to just leaving that brand behind. And because there's such a tight community, especially with connection being so easy nowadays with so many platforms, it's very easy for word to spread that, hey, this brand is not able to do this thing in terms of important topics like climate change, for example.
Yeah.
They really will make that shift. So I think it's very important that within Ramadan, also outside of Ramadan, you need to make sure that your brand vision, what you want to
Hmm.
bring to the world, the good that you want to bring to the world is very visible in what you do. Don't make it a bit too obvious as well. It needs to be relevant. So something that one of our clients does is they actually create um, special exercises that correlate with the period. Not something that's a bit too specific to Ramadan, but a broader aspect, just to showcase that hey, you can be your best self. We're here to help you. Here's some exercises you can try out and do. And yeah, it's here for you if you need it. If you want
Yeah.
it, we're here. We'll help you. We have artists we can give you as well. So you're creating that connection that makes sense, and you're also making sure that you're also playing into the space of people want to be better versions of themselves, which is very important within the Ramadan period.
Agreed. Agreed. I actually have a lot more, to gain in terms of insights that we can share with the wider team, but and the wider viewers that were watching us. But as partners of InMobi on Microsoft Advertising, if I were to ask you, what are the top three tips that you think marketeers should take up during Ramadan? What would it be from your view? Rowan, we can start with you itself.
Yeah, all right. So I think the first key tip would be to play in the spaces where your audience is in. I think this is very important because this goes back to what I was talking about with online and offline. You can't really just focus on one thing and leave something else behind. So if you know that offline is a big part of your business and online is a growing part of your business, you can focus on offline and make sure that you put a lot of your effort there, but also don't just leave online behind. You play in the space where they're in, talk to them there, but the journey is also nuanced, which goes into my next point of full funnel marketing. Because even if you're playing in the space they're in, they will go into many different aspects. That first space is meant to be their entry point into your brand, entry point into your business. That way they're able to understand who you are, what you do, or if they know you already, they're able to know more about what you can provide for them. So full funnel marketing helps at least ensure that, hey, you as a brand can offer these values, you offer these products, is you're able to build that connection from them not knowing you or knowing you at a very broad level to them knowing you at a more intimate level. Them being more comfortable with buying your products. Them being more comfortable with understanding the value you bring to the world. I think a last very important point also is to plan very early. I think with Ramadan, a lot of these seasonal moments, if you don't plan early, you might get left behind. Things move very
Yeah.
fast. And as I mentioned earlier as well, these trends tend to start quite early. When you plan early, you're able to put your best foot forward. Plan in terms of how you're going to run your media with the budget, how you're going to run your designs, how you're going to plan out your offline, your online, the connections as well, the measurement as well. Make sure you have all this in place. That way, when actual Ramadan comes, you're able to be fully prepared and you're able to run things very efficiently in a great manner.
Yeah. Uh, I think some of the points are really specific, right, in terms of how you should approach not just Ramadan, but any of these seasonal events that will come into play.
Yeah.
So, Rowan, thanks a lot for sharing those. Anusha, from your lens, I know that Limitless is already has already launched a case study on Microsoft advertising and how what are the tactics that you utilize to better leverage the platform and drive success. But from a larger lens of tips and tricks that digital marketers or marketers in general can use this Ramadan, what would your views on that be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the first point is actually piggybacking on what Ruben said earlier about, understanding what people are looking for and, being real. And it's Ramadan. The focus is on spirituality, focuses on family gatherings and charitable acts. So, make sure if there's an opportunity to be positive in your content, that would really stand out. So just knowing what kind of content to put out is really important. The second thing, and I think this is really important, and this actually was a good reminder for me as well with my team is, understanding that timings and behavior is going to change, or it has changed during Ramadan. So we need to adjust our timing, our formats. During the day, attention span will dwindle, and we know mobile behavior will increase towards the evenings after the breaking of the fast, and that's when they would spend more time online. Their travel and work schedule has all changed. So how do we make sure that we flush out our content at the right time? I think it's really important to kind of change up, if that's our target audience, of course. We need to adjust for the Ramadan time periods and things like that. And my third point would really be about planning beyond Ramadan. Ruben said earlier, it starts as a month before, but again, it could even start a year before, because we know it happens every year. So, just making sure that, if we want to do something with an emotional cut through, you want to survey it, you want to try it, you want to test it, start early, prepare early, and make sure you can come up with something that would really stand out during this period.
Yeah, I think it'll be great to see how the how the seasonality of Ramadan ends in. But extremely happy to have chatted with you. Thank you so much for joining in today as well. I definitely look forward to doing more of these sessions with both of you online or definitely in person. I think in the digital age, it's definitely important to meet in person and get this done as well. But thank you so much for taking your time. I'm hoping that all our viewers have gained some value. We do have both a few case studies on Limitless as well as the Ramadan insights that are out, which we'll share across as well. So you can better leverage it with the numbers and insights to plan better for the current event as well as any seasonal events that are upcoming in the coming months. Thank you so much again, Anusha and Rowan, for joining in. It was a pleasure having you guys.